Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Imprint. I am very excited to share today's conversation with Lean Timms, who is a photographer. You will be familiar with her images as soon as you see them, if you're not familiar with her name. She has had extensive work featured in publications, including magazines such as Gourmet Traveler, Country Style, Condé Nast Traveler, and she also has been a photographer for many different types of books, interior books and food books. And I'm really excited to share as well that we will be joining forces to host a workshop at the start of May. So Lean has hosted many photography workshops over the years. They're sort of retreat style workshops, and I will be joining her to teach styling in the workshop that's coming up in the beginning of May. If you are interested in joining us, I have added a link in the show notes so you can go and check out all the details. We have put in the 4th and 5th of May as the dates. We would love to have you come and learn photography and styling. I'm going to be learning photography alongside you with Lean being our teacher, and I will also be sharing about styling, and we will be also opening up to questions about running a creative business. And it's really going to be an intimate and beautiful setting in Byron Bay where I'm based. And really excited for this. So it doesn't matter if you've never picked up a digital camera before. It doesn't matter if you're maybe just a hobbyist and you do want to continue as a hobbyist, or maybe you're a professional photographer and just really wanting to have more play. This is certainly a big part of it for me. We talk about this in the interview about how important it is to follow your curiosity and just to engage with things for the sake of play, and also community, how important it is to surround yourself with like-minded people and foster those connections. And the sort of things that you can learn in these settings and these environments are the sort of things that you can't really learn anywhere else and experience anywhere else. So really excited for this. Please come and join us. And in the meantime, enjoy my conversation with Lean Timms. Hi, Lean. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I have been a huge admirer of your work for a number of years now, and really looking forward to learning more about you, your journey, your creative process, all of the things. So I like to start these conversations with just getting to know a little bit more about your backstory, because I think it's so interesting to learn. Where did you start? Were you creative as a child? Because so many people, I think so many people who listen to this podcast as well, they're creatives. Some of them are doing creative jobs, but others they've kind of always been creative, but then maybe ended up in a job that they don't love. And so it's interesting to find out, your background, where you created as a child. And let's start there. And then we'll go into those school years where you're then having to start to make decisions about, what am I actually going to do? Am I going to go on to further study and all those things?
Oh, hi, Natalie. Well, it's just so lovely to be chatting with you. Hello. I feel really honored to be on your podcast, and I'm so inspired by all that you do as well and all that you share. So it's just pure joy for me to be chatting with you and everyone listening as well today. Thank you for inviting me. My story, I would love to share that with you. It's so interesting. I've been a photographer now for about 10 years. And in the very beginning, I sort of decided that my personal story wasn't really necessary to, I guess, talk about or to share and have that as part of my brand. But then I quickly realized that I'm the kind of person that really loves to learn about people's stories, and I love reading memoirs, and I love understanding creatives' past lives and how they got to where they are. So yeah, I guess telling stories and everyone's story is really relevant. So I would love to share that with you. Thank you for asking. So yeah, I grew up in a really small town, in a little country town in southeast Queensland, on a property there. And it was a really interesting childhood because it was such a small country town, but it was also a very affluent town because it was kind of, it was a mining town. So there was always a lot of things going on. There was a lot of great community happening all the time, and my parents are really involved in the community. So I had this really lovely childhood of being isolated in the country, but also just having this lovely little bubble around me of great things to do all the time. And I was a really creative child. I was always really into music, and I mean, I used to play drums. I was really into dancing. I was really into drama. I used to sing. Loved musicals. So that was a huge part of my childhood. And yeah, I just loved performing arts at that point in my life. And it's so interesting now because I'm still, obviously, I love creativity and love creating, but back then it was all about performing and being sort of, on the stage. And now it's very much kind of behind the scenes and yeah, I guess creating behind the scenes. So back in the day, I gathered a lot of joy from, being in this performance world, which I loved. But I was also a very, very quiet child in many ways. And my dad very rightly shared at my 21st birthday that I was quite a loner when I was a kid. So I used to spend a lot of time by myself creating as well, whether it was in my room writing lots of poetry. I used to love writing, or whether I'd walk down the back and, build a teepee in the bush or whatever it looked like. I loved being alone, and I still am a very kind of introverted person in that way. I mean, I'm extroverted when I'm around people and love that, but I also definitely need my own time to recharge. So as a kid, I would spend a lot of time alone, just kind of creating in my own world as well. But I really got into dance early. It just became my world. I was obsessed with dance. And I had an amazing mentor when I was probably about 13. This lady came to town and she opened this incredible dance school. Her name was Melinda Taylor, and she just became this amazing mentor for me who allowed me to grow and just encouraged me to, just really, really help with my confidence and really helped me to see possibilities in this creative world for my future. And I really just wanted to be a dancer. That's all I wanted to do. So it was a lot of ballet and a lot of jazz. And it was my first ever teaching job. My first ever job, I guess, as a kid was teaching dance to little ones and then to adults. So it was just this amazing opportunity for me to to dance all the time, but also, to gain confidence and to grow in that world. And then I ended up auditioning to dance at university. So I went and applied for dance degree at uni, and I got in, which was just so exciting. But I decided that I would postpone it for a year because I guess growing up in this really small country town, I was in such a small bubble. I'd never really experienced the big wide world. And there were a few kids above me at school who went and did exchange programs. And so I love this idea of being able to go overseas and live there for a year. So I applied for an exchange program to go to Sweden again so I could dance. And off I went when I was 17 the first time on an international flight. I think maybe only the second time out of the state. And I went and lived in Sweden for just under a year and absolutely loved that world and became an absolute fan of Scandinavia ever since, I guess. And yes, then I came back to uni. I studied dance and drama as well. So I did a bit of a creative performing arts degree there at QUT in Brisbane. And, I guess it's so interesting what we're sort of told as we go along, because I do remember a lot of people sharing with me that maybe dancing wasn't going to be the best choice in terms of a career, and would I be able to make that a career, and would I be able to make money from it? So I was always encouraged to kind of go down the education route as well. And so I ended up doing a double degree and doing education as well. So I became a dance and drama high school teacher. And I loved teaching so much. Like, I'd already been teaching. My mum was a teacher, so I kind of grew up in that world. She taught kindergarten and preschool. So I did love the idea of going into education, and it also ended up fitting really well into the next few years of my life. So on a personal note, I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart, Jacob, who was just my biggest teacher, and so intelligent and wise and such a loving man. And we were together from the age of 14, 15, and we got married on our 10th anniversary, and we were together for just under 5 years after that. So 15 years of our life we were together, which is, I guess, a pretty significant time at that point in your life when you're growing together. And he's still one of my closest friends. We have this very interesting modern family going on now, where Jacob, after we separated, he found this amazing woman named Hannah, and who I adore, and she's just the most amazing person. And Jacob and Hannah married, and they had beautiful Alia, their daughter, who's now 6, and she's my goddaughter, or my spirit daughter, because we don't really believe in God. So we have this lovely family situation going on, and we got a puppy together, Ned, my dog Ned, that we share. And so it's just this really lovely modern family. But I'm sharing this story because Jacob had, I guess it was a lot of influence in my life and how I got from, I guess, back then to now. So Jacob he's an engineer, and he was in the Navy. And so after I graduated and he graduated also, we ended up just travelling all over Australia with his Navy postings. So we would go to, every 2 years we would pack up house and we'd move somewhere else. And these were, often in Australia, but ended up being overseas as well. But during that time, I guess I would just pick up jobs wherever I could as a dance teacher or a drama teacher at high schools. And I didn't really love it, to be honest. Like, it was pretty hard. I loved the creative element. I loved the sharing element. I loved the education side of things. But a lot of the schools I was teaching at were quite difficult. And so I quickly became the, I guess, behaviour management person, which, it's very draining and not the most fun. And I just kind of looked at things then in that point of time and just thought, I don't know if I really want to be doing this. I've always been such an independent person, and I just felt like maybe there was another way. Maybe there's a way that I could still be creative and potentially teach, but do this in my own time, in my own way, and hopefully, I guess, feel a lot more fulfilled from that. I was about 23 when my darling dad passed away, and it was a really good shake-up for me at that time, because I wasn't super happy in this life, I guess, in the way that I was working, and I did enjoy moving around all the time, but I wasn't really happy. I was feeling really down, and my dad. Bit of an interesting backstory, I guess. It's a long one, but the short of it is that my dad is 30 years older than my mum. So I think she was 19 and he was 49 when they met, and they had this beautiful, loving, gorgeous relationship. My dad was 58 when he had me, so he was quite old, I guess, but he never behaved old. He never complained of his age. He was actually so fit. He was a builder, an amazing man, very loving, lots of beautiful energy, and just always happy, very creative, also loved singing, also loved dancing. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he passed away, I think, within 6 months of his diagnosis, which was just a shock to our entire family, and turned our worlds upside down. I know you've been through a similar thing recently, Natalie, and it's always a rough situation. Anyone losing a parent, you do really look at the world differently, and you have a different perspective on life. And it was a really amazing gift now that I look back on it, because at 23 it gave me a really good mirror insight into the world and into, I guess, our mortality and just this idea of, well, life doesn't go on forever, and now is the time to make choices, I guess, to live a more fulfilling life and to choose, I guess, a career, a lifestyle, whatever it looks like, that makes me more fulfilled and more happy. So, I guess I got to that point and really started to make some big changes then.
So obviously now we know you for being a photographer, and that's, how you've made in more recent years your, I guess, imprint on the world. But how did then you transition from having gone from working as a teacher, traveling around Australia, and then this kind of, I guess, wake up moment for you to then transitioning? Because I think this is something that people struggle with a lot. I think we can all hit these tipping points or turning points in our life where we feel like something's got to change. I've got to do something different. But then to actually start then taking steps or action towards that can be really challenging. So what was that for you?
It's so true, isn't it? I mean, we can reflect on things and be like, hang on, something's wrong here. But then, to actually move forward and make steps to change that's the tough part. But so I was, I think at that point, Jacob had just got his first international posting overseas, and we were so excited about this, to go overseas. I'd actually been living in the UK for a year prior to this, and I think that for me was like, I've got to get out of here, I've got to change, I've got to shake this depression that's happening. And I moved overseas for a year and lived in London to try and kind of get out of the funk and to do something different. But I did end up teaching over there. I guess it's pretty easy as Australians to go and teach in the UK, even though I wanted to kind of step away from that. I think in the back of my mind I was always thinking, okay, how can I shift this? What can I be doing? And I had a few ideas in mind. I thought maybe I'd go into songwriting, maybe I would be a florist. That was really exciting for me. I had some ideas. I just wasn't sure what that looked like. And then when I came home, that's when Jacob and I actually got married. We were like, what are we doing? Let's just get married. Let's go. So we got married, and then we moved over to the US. And that was our first international posting together. And like I said, we were so excited, but there was a big part of me that was like, oh gosh, we're moving to Florida. Am I going to find like-minded creative people there? Am I going to be am I going to be fighting literally with people every other day about whatnot? So I wasn't sure. We got there though, and we just had an amazing time. We fell into this incredible community, and we were both really into rock climbing. So we'd be going on adventures every other weekend. Florida's really flat, so we would be going on these adventures every weekend, going rock climbing. And I'd been sharing a lot of sort of our activities and adventures on Facebook, just with friends and whatnot. This was back in 2013. So Instagram was really fresh at that point. You kind of go on Instagram, add the filter, and then you go back to Facebook and actually share the photos. So I was loving photography, but I think it was just all taken on my basic iPhone at that point. And I'd had really lovely conversations with a friend of mine, Beth, another rock climbing friend, and she's like, Lean, have you ever taken photos on a proper DSLR camera? And I said, no, I haven't. She said, would you like to borrow my camera this weekend when we go up to the mountains? I said, I would love to. So we went up to North Carolina, and while everyone was rock climbing, I had this camera, and I just got so excited. And I'll never forget the first photo that I took on this camera that blew me away. And it was a complete fluke. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was a wild blueberry in the bushes, in the forest. And this blueberry was in focus, and then everything around it was out of focus and blurry, and this dappled light coming through the trees. It was so beautiful, and it just made me really excited. So then from that moment, I was like, wait a second, I haven't really thought about photography. And in that moment, actually, I wasn't really thinking so much about photography. I was more thinking, this is a really cool tool for me to be able to share all the things that I'm doing on a blog. And, you know, blogs were really they were the thing back then. Like I would get really excited about logging onto the computer and seeing who'd blogged that day or that week, and I'm reading the blogs, and I thought maybe I could do that. And particularly because we're overseas and this was all really exciting for me in this whole new adventure, I thought, okay, what if I share our travel stories, first of all, because we're doing that a lot anyway. And then I was really into cooking and really into food, and it was such a joy for me to move to the other side of the world, have the seasons reversed, have a very different climate, go to the farmers markets, find different food there. So I would bring this food back and I would create recipes, and then I would, you know, take pretty average photos of these recipes. And I thought, well, what if I'm sharing those online as well? So I thought, okay, I'll do that too. Maybe my parents, maybe my friends might follow and think this is interesting. And then, so I started doing that, and I got really into it, like just so excited about creating a blog, and the writing element of it too, I really enjoyed. And I started to do this and really commit to this like 3 times a week. And it would be the travel on a Monday. I remember this. I was so committed. Travel post on a Monday. Wednesday, I would do a new recipe. And then Friday, I started this kind of new column on my blog, which for me was just the most amazing thing, I think, and the smartest thing I've ever done in my career so far, actually, now that I look back on it. So I was just so inspired, I guess, by this creative lifestyle. And at this point, honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do. I think this was about 6 months into our 2-year posting, and I knew that I was changing my career. I knew I wanted to do that, and I was so thankful that I had the support of Jacob. I remember going to the States because I was a Navy wife, and there was an upheaval allowance. I think they called it something like that. I think they gave us around $30,000 to be able to for this allowance. And at the time, if I was going to be a teacher in the States, and this was back in Obama days, which is amazing, but it was dollar for dollar at the time. So I think if I was going to be a teacher in the States, it was going to be a similar amount of income annually anyway. So I thought, well, this is a really good opportunity for me to take the time off and use this money to invest in a new skill. So at this point, I was really playing and really trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. And I was so unsure. And I thought, well, why don't I go out and I start to interview creatives who are out there, who are already doing full-time freelance creative work, and just ask them, like, how do they do this? How do they make a career without having a side hustle or without working for the man or whatever it looked like? And this, again, like I said, it was really early days with Instagram, but I was starting to follow these really great creatives on Instagram. And it was also the days of, do you remember Kinfolk magazine back in, this is like, 2013, 2014. And I was so inspired by those early days of the Kinfolk magazine and all these amazing creatives doing incredible things, and even going through and thinking, oh, who's the photographer, or who's the stylist, or who's this jeweler? So I started to write down names, and I don't know what came over me, but I just was like, hell, I'm just going to reach out to these people and ask them if I can come and interview them. And so I did. I would email them and say, hey, I'm coming to Colorado or Seattle or New York or Charleston, South Carolina, or wherever I was going, in Nashville. And I would say, hey, I'm coming to your city, I'm coming to your town. I would love to meet you. Can I spend an hour with you? So I'd take some photos, and then I would send them an interview, and they would fill that out. And then I would post this on my blog. And I still didn't really know what I was doing with the camera. I'd bought myself a new camera by this stage, so at least I had a good camera, but I didn't really know what I was really doing with it. And I would spend an hour with these people, and it was an amazing educational experience for me personally, because it meant that I had 1 hour with these people that I'd never met before. And I had to sort of, introduce myself and I guess manage the situation enough to be able to make them feel comfortable, to allow me the space to be creative and take these photos, for us to have a conversation, but for me not to be too distracted. It was an incredible hour, and often it went longer than an hour because we'd end up connecting and having lovely chats and whatnot. And I'd probably overshot and took like 300 photos in an hour and maybe be happy with 6 of them at the end. But still, I would compile these stories at the end of each week and I would share them on my blog. And this is when I started to really understand, I guess, how collaboration and networking works, because I would share this on my blog and then they'd be excited and they would share it on theirs, or they'd share it on whatever platform, on their Instagram or on their any kind of social media. And then it was incredible to watch then the repercussions of that and how I just started to get all these followers on Instagram. And then all of a sudden I just started to feel like part of this really incredible creative community. And I was so inspired. And yeah, off I went on my blogging journey. And it took me a while to realize that my favorite part out of my blog was actually taking the photos. As much as I loved meeting these people and as much as I loved writing the recipes and doing the travel stories, I really loved getting my camera out and taking photos every single day wherever I went. So I started to really lean into that. And then Savor magazine, they used to have, I don't know, they still do, maybe they still do, they have these blog awards. I was nominated for a blog award and I didn't win, but I did. A week afterwards, I got an email from them and they offered me a contracted job, and it was one of my first ever contracted jobs that I'd ever had. And Jacob and I were moving back to Australia at this point. So yeah, there'd been a lapse in there of about 18 months, which we can go back to if you like. But during that time, obviously, I got better with my camera and got better at taking photos. But yeah, they invited me to go down to the Barossa and Clare Valleys and do this travel shoot. So they sent me on location. They paid for my flights. They booked me a hire car. They booked me accommodation. And they gave me sort of a loose itinerary. Actually, they didn't even give me an itinerary. They just gave me contacts of people that I needed to reach out to then organise shoots with them while I was on location. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. They've organised all of this and they're going to pay me. I think they paid me like $2,000 to do this job. I was like, this is unreal. Is this for real? This is actually a job. And I loved it so much. I loved everything about it. I loved that they gave me the independence to organise the shoots while I was there. I loved the travel. I loved learning about everything I learned about while I was there. It was all about natural wine, and I had no idea what that was at that point. This is, probably end of 2014, start of 2015. And I was just enamoured by this type of work, and I thought, that's it. Okay, I'm done with the blog now. I just want to do this full time. So that's, I guess, what really launched me then into my photography work in terms of, what I do today, I guess.
That's amazing. What I love about that, and what I kind of really hear, and I think, hopefully everyone else is hearing this as well, is first of all, you just followed your curiosity, which I think is so important to just follow. You tried doing you were doing the food photography and recipes and travel and then meeting these people. And I think, just this process of following your curiosity is so important. And also surrounding yourself with other people who are like-minded and kind of on a similar journey to you. I did a similar thing. I had a blog around probably similar kind of time. I started at 2007 Daily Imprint, which is kind of, this podcast in many ways is, that evolved. And I had contact with so many people through my work, working on a magazine, and I would interview them in a similar kind of way. And it was the thing that gave me the courage to kind of pursue my dreams. So I think it's so important and fascinating to hear that was your story as well. So then,
I love that.
how
Yeah.
then has your photography? Well, I guess I do want to just touch on this a little bit because I think that particularly with something like photography, it's a very specific skill, and I think so many people, me included, have like a little bit of a roadblock. Like, I'm great with my iPhone, but going to a digital camera, like, were you doing lots of YouTube, like doing self-taught, or did you then go and enroll in like kind of some kind of classes, or how did you learn the skill, or was it just purely a trial and error process? And do you think you have to be technically minded to be good on with a camera, or do you think it's something that anyone can learn?
Great question. Yeah, so in the beginning, because I'm not technical, I'm not a technical person at all. I actually kind of freaked out about the technical side of the camera. I loved the process of picking up my camera and I guess not knowing all of those details and just being able to look through it and figure it out as I went. So I committed to doing this every single day. I learned a little bit. Obviously, you've got to learn a little bit about a few different settings, but I think I had it on AV mode, which is your aperture setting. So I chose my aperture, which for those out there who don't know is I guess when you're able to select your subject and then decide what around that subject is going to be blurry or not. It's that depth of field that it can make your image look really beautiful. So I was playing with that, which was kind of one creative element that I found creative, even though it was technical. It was the creative element that I really enjoyed playing with. And then from there, it was just all about picking up my camera and seeing what looked good. And it allowed me some time to learn, I guess, things like framing and composition and timing and following light and reading and understanding light. So I was kind of really inspired by and digging into that side of photography more than thinking, okay, what's my shutter speed or what's my ISO or, any of, I guess, the technical things. The issue with that, though, is that often I'd get my photos back and they'd be blurry or they'd be too dark or, they'd be out of focus. And it did take me a while. Then I kind of was learning as I went and learning by making these mistakes. And maybe if I go back and do it now, I do it entirely different because I think there is a lot of empowerment and understanding the technical side of things. But I really knew that as a person, I'm more creative. So I really lent into that side of things. I also knew that I didn't want to go and study photography formally, even when I really started to get interested in it and knew that this was a direction I wanted to take in terms of career. I was worried that the same thing would happen with what happened with my dance career and my dance journey, that in going to university, it really did stifle a lot of my creative energy because I guess any kind of artistic pursuit is subjective. And then all of a sudden, if you're worried about what kind of grades you're getting or what your professor's thinking or what kind of, if you're doing something right according to someone's opinion, then you're going to start changing, I guess, the way that you create and the way that you would naturally see the world. So I'm really grateful looking back that I didn't do that I allowed myself the time and the space to learn intuitively and creatively and just hum with this idea that if I love it, that's good enough. And if anyone else loves it, then that's a bonus. But then I did get to this stage, obviously, where I needed to understand more. And I had some really amazing mentors while I was living in the States that I learned from and that were so generous in sharing their knowledge with me that I'm super grateful for. The first one I did, I went to a workshop over in Seattle with Iran Goyuaga, and she's an amazing cook and stylist and photographer. And I went to one of her workshops in her beautiful studio in Seattle. And she had a guest teacher at the time, which was the amazing photographer, the Australian photographer, Louisa Brimble. And I headed over there. I was so excited I think because at this stage I'd been so involved in the creative world that was the States and these amazing creatives, all over the States. But it was exciting for me to think of meeting someone from Australia, knowing I was going back to Australia, but also, just to have this grounding element of, or this maybe even possibility that this world does exist out of the States, and maybe when I go home I could do this too. And Louisa was an amazing, she was photographing for Kinfolk magazine also at that time, which clearly was a huge inspiration for me back then. So to meet Louisa was really special, and I'll never forget that time. And it was such a shifting point for me in my photography career, at least in that very beginning stage, because when I got to the workshop, Louisa and I just connected, and it was so fun and so wonderful. And she ended up taking me under her wing for an entire week following that workshop and invited me to join her on a trip through Portland. I'd had a whole trip planned going up to Vancouver, but Louisa said, come on down to Portland. I've got all these amazing people I'm meeting and photographing. Would you like to follow me? Would you like to second me in shooting? And that really, I think, it's still that generosity still sits with me, and that idea of sharing and being so open to share your, I guess, creative skills and industry practices. Yeah, it was so inspiring. So that was so fun. And then I had another amazing mentor living in the States also. Often we'd go up to Tennessee to go rock climbing, and I think I met some really wonderful creatives in Nashville, in Tennessee. And one of those incredible people is my dear late friend, Beth Kirby, which a lot of us know as just being an incredible force of nature when it came to photography and just creative life in general. Such an inspiring woman. And yeah, I remember reaching out to Beth after we met at a dinner and just said, hey, can I come and hang out with you at your house? And can I take photos of you? And can I do this interview? And again, we just ended up connecting, and we spent lots of really fun times together. And she was so inspiring to me because, I mean, she's just such a wild child. Like, I just loved her energy, so creative, but also just very, very real and very kind of, rough around the edges, but then just so driven and so inspiring in many, many ways. And my time with her was just, it was never long enough. She would share everything with me. One of the most generous people I've met in terms of just everything's on the table, and would openly share opportunities, share like really honest, candid conversations about money, about business, about everything. So Beth was an incredible mentor for me also, and yeah, she was really helpful with me in that technical side of things as well, and started to, I guess, spark my curiosity and interest to learn even more in that. So yeah, for the majority of the technical side, I guess I'm pretty self-taught, but having these incredible mentors just to kind of share the way that they did things, and more the way they ran their business, or the way that they approached shoots, or the way they, their process in general, taught me a lot, was really inspiring. But eventually I had to learn the technical side of things, and look, it completely changed my photography world, and I really should have done it sooner. But also, like I said, I'm really glad that I learned the way that I did, and slowly, and built my confidence in a way that felt really, good to me, I guess.
Just quickly, if you're new to me and the podcast, I have 4 books that I've created for you to help break down the biggest lessons I've learned over the past 15 years working in the interiors industry. The first, This Is Home, has more than 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon and has almost a perfect score, and more than 5 years since its release continues to be a bestseller for interior and home design on Amazon. I share this because I've put thousands of hours into creating all of my books. I put my heart and soul into each one to help you on your journey to creating a home that's beautiful and authentic and makes you feel good every time you step through the front door. This Is Home is part of a trilogy that includes Still, the Slow Home, and Style, the Art of Creating a Beautiful Home. So I encourage you to check them out if you haven't already. And Home by the Sea, my 4th book, includes my own home and is all about loving where you live. I hope you find them valuable and they help you on your journey. You can buy them on Amazon or support your local bookseller. Now back to the show. And again, I think it's that thing of following your curiosity. I feel like that's a bit of a thread, following your curiosity, not just with what you're learning, like different elements of it, but then like your curiosity with like, I'm going to be open to contacting these people and seeing where this goes. And I think that's, there's so much that we can learn from each other. And there's so much, I think we live in a funny kind of time in the sense that I think that was a very, very open time. And I feel that, the dynamic has shifted slightly with Instagram, maybe algorithms, whatever it is, but that there was so much generosity. Like even on Instagram, I remember when it first started, of like people sharing each other's work. And I feel like everything is just, it feels in general, I would say, so much more competitive in a way, which is such a shame, like, because there's so much to be learned of connecting together. I think it's really important. So tell us then how,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So you were kind of, doing these shoots with people, and how would you describe now, I guess, the majority of photography that you do? I know that you've done photography on a series of books.
Mhm.
What would you say are like the key areas that you photograph, and how did you decide that's where you were going to focus on? Because obviously, like you say, you were doing travel, you were doing people, you were doing food. Photography is one of those things where it can be quite broad. So how did you then decide, like, this is the area that kind of actually really interested me? And also, you've touched on business. Like, there comes a point where it's like, oh, this is the thing that's actually going to make it a living
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Oh gosh, so many good things to talk about. I'd love to go back and chat with you about that sort of competition and that scarcity mindset also. And yeah, this sense of community that was built in Instagram back in the day. Like, I certainly would not be here in my career and doing what I do today without the generosity of others and without that beautiful community that was built there, which I do still think is around, and I still do think that's definitely there. And I'm a big one for championing that and fostering that, which, I'd love to talk to you more about. But in terms of where I went next and how I ended up doing, I guess, what I do today and the type of photography that I do now. So back to the story, I guess we came back from the USA and I had this first job with Saver magazine, and just knew that was the world that I wanted to jump into. Jacob and I, we ended up separating about a year after we came back to Australia, and it was just this amazing time. Honestly, it was such a, for me, really, I can sort of draw a line in the sand of my life prior to that point and my life after. It was almost like BP before photography and AP after photography, and this past life of, Selena, that's my birth name, the ballerina, and a Navy wife, and kind of figuring out what my life would look like, and then post that, which was, just really coming into this world of photography and embracing this freelance lifestyle and this creative way of living. And it really was the separation from Jacob that was a huge marker in that for me, because being the generous man that he still is, we agreed that after we separated, which was totally amicable. I mean, it was a moment where we just realized that being husband and wife just didn't serve us anymore, and we wanted to, be friends. And it was just this incredible realization of, those moments in life where you think, actually you can't think, because to be able to create this version of your life just wouldn't be possible, because your imagination can't even come up with how great your life could be post a moment in your life. It was one of those moments where we were both like, oh my gosh, we're meant to be friends. This is so incredible. So we decided that would be the way moving forward. And I was living in the house that I'm in now, and Jacob and I, we decided that he would help me cover the rent for that month. I was still quite dependent on his income at that point. I think I was probably earning maybe like $25,000 a year at that point. And in my mind, I was thinking, if I could reach like the financial markers and I guess an annual income of what I would have earned as a teacher, then I would have made it, So I was really excited for that moment, but I just hadn't got there yet. And so I was living in this house for a month, and the rent was covered, and I still had access to our joint account and all the rest of it. And at the end of the month, then it was, okay, then maybe I would have to consider how I would continue to support myself independently and independent of this life that I knew with Jacob, which for me was really exciting, because I'm such an independent person anyway. I never wanted to be a kept wife. Like, that was so opposite of who I am as a person. But it was just this amazing time, and it could have been scary, but I had these incredible 2 months that just fueled me and filled me up and sent me on this amazing direction. I just turned 30. Jake and I had separated. I'd just come out as being gay. I was falling in love with my first girlfriend. I'd had, new housemates living in the house. And then all of a sudden, these jobs just started coming to me and filling my inbox, and really exciting jobs, travel jobs to Tassie, working with really big brands. And it just was this really abundant time in my life. I was just so full of life and full of energy and inspiration. And I think it was that moment then for me where I was like, okay, like I've got this, and I'm so excited now. I'm gonna really make a go of this and live this freelance lifestyle. And so then from there, these jobs that were arriving and the type of photography that I was doing, honestly, like I used to just say yes to everything that landed in my inbox because I needed to. I didn't know like what was coming next. And I guess as a freelancer, that's always something that you're sort of struggling with, is like where's my next paycheck coming from? And particularly at that point in my life anyway, it was, yeah, I just took anything. But I quickly learned the jobs that I loved and quickly learned the jobs that I didn't. And so, yeah, the sort of work that I was doing, as I said, you know, I would start traveling over for brands and creating content for them. I was photographing cookbooks. I was still doing a lot of food photography, and I guess I was sharing a lot of that on my Instagram and on my blog at the time. I was still sharing the travel photography and the food photography. And it was so interesting. It was sort of, you could really see the reflection of whatever I shared on my socials or on my website was the kind of work that I picked up. And it was a couple of years in where I realized food photography wasn't as big of a love for me as, say, travel photography. So I started to share more about travel photography or shooting for hotels or shooting lifestyle stories for in-flight or travel magazines. And I would start to pick up more of that work, and it just felt so great to then be able to take these jobs and travel the world and be able to photograph these amazing places and share these amazing stories. And I learned then that I absolutely love storytelling, and the power of telling stories through imagery just really got me excited. I was still taking food photography jobs, and I got to photograph some amazing cookbooks. One in Greece, Ikaria, with Manny Vale, which was amazing. My first ever proper job actually was photographing a book, and I still can't believe that these three wonderful women who live in Florida trusted me to take photographs for their book. And at the time I was like, oh, it's just going to be, maybe it's like a little simple coffee table book. It's ended up being like still one of my proudest projects that I've worked on, in this beautiful book called The Saints of Old Florida, which is about the lifestyle living on the panhandle of Florida. And one of the authors, Melissa Farrell, who is one of my dearest friends now, still lives in the Florida panhandle. And I've just finished photographing a book for her, which I'm so excited to come out. Watch this space. I'll share more when it does come out. But yeah, photographing books, photographing all sorts of things all around. And I was also invited, and this kind of happened with Beth also when she was doing her retreats back in the day, was invited to begin teaching photography. And it just felt so natural, I guess, because coming from a teaching background and having actively given that part of my career up, but then also love this idea of being able to share again and teach again, particularly adults who wanted to learn. It was a really exciting opportunity. So I ended up joining Beth and then a lot of other amazing women who created retreats around the world and teaching photography. I guess that part of it, that teaching the photography and then also taking the photos, just lent itself to this really fulfilling, exciting career.
Yeah, no, it's one thing that springs to mind that I'm really curious to find out your answer to is, and it kind of overlaps with styling a little bit, and I think it's something that's true of photography, is how do you think you found your style as a photographer? I think that people who really lean into what it is that makes their photography unique or different from other people, how did you find the confidence to lean into what that was for you? And can you describe it in some kind of capacity? I know for me, I always hate when I get asked this question because it's, people say, what's your style? And I think for me, I mean, I'll just kind of share like a little bit of context when it comes to style and interiors and styling. I'm very much a believer that, I think people get caught up with, particularly with when it comes to styling, talking about decorating styles. It's like, oh, I'm
Mm.
modern rustic or whatever. I'm like, no, that's not your style. That's a decorating style. And for
Right.
me, like a style is in a personal style, which can be the way that you dress. It can be, how you create your interiors, your home, everything that you do in many ways. I feel like it's much more rooted in a a feeling, like how you feel about spaces. It's connected
Mm.
with your personal journey and story. We've all been on different journeys, and what you value. So like I feel like they're the sort of like the three foundations of what that is. And so sometimes it's not as simple as like putting it in, a catchy little phrase or word. I mean, some people can do that, but so yeah, I'm wondering for you, when it comes to photography, how would you describe your style? How has that evolved over the years? And do you think that leaning into it has been key to kind of getting more and more bookings and more projects?
Yeah. I think sort of what you mentioned earlier about being curious, I think that sort of lent itself to me developing my style from the beginning, and also allowing myself that time just to create in a way that felt really organic to me, I guess, and not worrying about will people like it, which is always really hard, and particularly in the beginning stages of Instagram and social media, where it's very evident whether people do or don't like your work, and then you're kind of encouraged or discouraged from that. But I've certainly learned as I've gone along just to kind of take photos that really, if they sing to me and they feel really good to me, then that's kind of enough. And then in sharing those, like I said, if people like that, also it's a bonus. But I noticed really early on the things that sort of drew me in and got me really excited, and then made me feel like I wanted to continue taking photos. And one of those things in particular was light. And I remember, some of the photographers that I was introduced to really early on, people like Olivia Ray James, who I still absolutely love. The way that she looks at and reads light is just so inspiring to me. And I found myself drawn to a very similar pathway where I'd just be like, oh, I'm going to take a photo of that because the light's falling really beautiful there, or oh my gosh, look at the light shifting here, or this time of the day, or whatever it was. Like, I would get really excited about that. So I think light became something that I was really motivated by, and got excited to create around and from and with. And then, I think like a lot of it was just trial and error. A lot of it was just me playing. A lot of it was, I don't know. Like I said, that storytelling element just got me really excited as well. And I remember realizing very early that in sharing something, and maybe this motivated me a lot in terms of my style also, was that knowing that I was kind of sharing wherever I was in the world, that the intention was to be able to share this with somebody, and hopefully, if I'd done my job properly, be able to transport them there with me, or to be able to, give them insight into this corner or this window of this world. So for me, I guess my style evolved from knowing that I was going to be doing that with others also, which is a bit of a juxtaposition as what I said earlier, and like putting on blinkers and just getting excited for what I organically was drawn to, but also being able to go, okay, how do I share this with somebody, and how is someone going to relate to this work and be able to be here with me in this moment, in this space that I'm finding so beautiful. So I started to think about ways that I would frame the world. So, really getting a wide shot so people could imagine themselves there and go, oh, this is where you are in the world, or this is the room you're in, or this is the garden we're in, or whatever it looked like. And then getting really excited about kind of reframing and going in smaller even, to think of, okay, what's some more detail, or what's happening over here, and how can I then zoom in and get a more focused moment of what's happening in this corner, or, oh, there's a really beautiful moment of light happening here, and then, oh, but this person's doing something over here, and just getting really excited by, I guess, the story that's going on, and all of the elements that come together to create that story. I feel like that has really helped me in terms of the storytelling element of my photography, I guess, which has become a bit more of the style that I'm interested in.
And so, what about now? What would you say, or I would say, sorry, how can you shine a bit of a light on what your photography practice looks like now? How often are you shooting? Are you still traveling a lot for shoots? What types of projects are you working on? Can you just sort of give us a little bit of a day in the life, week in the life of Lean?
Yes, I'd love to. So yes, I'm still traveling a lot. My days, my weeks, they vary so much, which I love. I'm kind of someone who really leans into change and spontaneity and things happening all the time. So I'm depends where my shoots are booked as to where I am in the world. And I call Canberra, this is where I live, I call it my base camp. I'm here sort of, if I'm lucky, maybe half of my year, but the last few years it's looked more like 3-4 months of the year I get to be at home, which isn't a lot, but it means that I get to be on the road and shooting and learning a lot as I go, which is always so much fun. When I am home, it could be that I'm editing, that I'm working on emails, that I'm working on other projects. I've got happening, creating workshops now. Lots of fun things always keeping me busy when I'm at home, and I try to keep somewhat of a routine when I'm home, which is also really hard because it's so inconsistent anyway. But simple things like, as soon as I wake up in the morning, having lemon water and going out to the garden. And I'm a big gardener, so I love my garden when I am home, taking Ned, the dog, for a walk, or walking down to a local cafe and then coming back and starting my day at home. So I do love when I get to work from home. It's super, super fun. When I'm on the road shooting, and that's a lot, it's either me in my car driving somewhere or on a flight, or often it's overseas. I'm photographing for all sorts of clients still, and that could look like me going down to Melbourne to photograph a home, or Tasmania to photograph homes, private clients in their Airbnbs, or commercial clients with the hotels, or lots of editorial work. So contracted a lot by magazines to go all sorts of places to take photos. It's really varied. My work is so varied, which I really love. But it keeps me moving, and just having so much time on the road, I guess, could be quite overwhelming. And to be honest, sometimes it is, and all I want to do is just to come back home. But there is something really fun about the adventure, and something fun about hopping between countries, and going to teach a workshop in Provence, and then going across to Sweden to photograph a travel story, and then, coming back to France to, like, it's always happening. There's so much going on. And then I guess me scheduling in downtime is really important too. And I've learned that is super important for me to be able to continue what I do, and I guess at the energy and pace that I do it. And for a few years there, pre-COVID, and then the last couple of years sort of post-COVID, has been really go on the road a lot. And I realized sort of during the pandemic how lovely it was to be able to sit and be still and to recoup energy. So I'm really trying to be a lot more mindful of that now, and schedule weeks off where I get to just be still and catch up, and I guess have a chance to digest all of the amazing things that I consume. Because it's wild when I think about it and step back, and at the end of the day, like, my job is to photograph some of the most amazing experiences, places, hotels, people, activities, in the world. And that privilege is so not lost on me. But what it means is I'm just consuming this amazing visual content constantly, and it's so beautiful. Like, honestly, I feel very, very lucky to have the job that I do, but I have realized that I need really quiet, still, almost nothing time, so that I can really appreciate that and really digest that, so that I'm not just hopping from one thing to the next, and not allowing these amazing experiences just kind of wash over, and then the next one happens. I've found myself, it's a really weird place to be in. And again, it's such a privilege. It's a privileged problem to have, but just acknowledging that I don't want to take any of this for granted. I don't want to just be moving through life at such a fast pace that I can't stop and go, holy shit, like that was the most incredible experience I've ever had. And I got to do that for work. And I just got to meet this incredible group of people. And now I want to like really reflect on that and just, remember how amazing that is before I move on to the next job, the next thing. So that's been, it's been a big learning curve for me.
And so just kind of circling back to the business side of things where you were talking about before that you kind of had that 2 months to kind of go, okay, I really need to make this thing happen. And obviously now you've got lots of clients. But I think sometimes that period where you're still working out what to charge, how to make this financially viable, like that can be a huge challenge for so many people. What have been some of the lessons that you've learned about that in terms of what to do and what to charge and how to charge for your services, and not be like on the hamster wheel of just working so much just to kind of try and make it all feasible as well?
Yeah, it took me a really long time, Natalie, to figure this part out, to be honest, because I really kind of was on that hamster wheel for a long time. And because I'm such a people pleaser, I tend to just say yes to everything. And particularly when I'd come back home to Canberra, there'd be a lot of lovely local businesses that would want my work, and and then whatever would come into the inbox, I just say yes in this kind of, and I guess maybe that was a bit of that scarcity mindset of like, just take it because it's there and it's available. But it took me a while actually to realize that wasn't the most effective or efficient way of working, and that I needed to, first of all, be really clear on the kind of work that I wanted to be doing, to be only promoting and sharing that, to only be saying yes to that kind of work, and that it was okay to say no to the other type of work. And then it was okay for me to be really clear on my worth also, a kind of acknowledging and respecting my time. That was a big thing. And I mean, when you're working for yourself and you do often end up working around the clock, you don't really switch off. You're not really allowing yourself the time to just stop and turn off emails or turn off notifications on your phone, or to not be connected to your work, just in case something comes up, just in case something's urgent. And there's always going to be something urgent. There's always going to be someone asking you for a file that needed to be delivered yesterday because they're going to print tomorrow. And it's all very fast paced, particularly in the editorial world and other people's worlds. There's always urgency. So I guess for me to sit down and go, okay, how do I want to spend my time? What kind of things are really bringing me joy? What kind of jobs do I really want to be doing? And then realizing that I had to start saying a lot of no's. And then I had to start charging what I was worth also. It really helped me to have mentors in the very beginning, with people that I admired, that I could ask and say, hey, how much are you charging for this kind of work? And photography is hard too, because you can set your day rate, or you can set, in the beginning I had an hourly rate or a half day rate. I don't do that anymore. I set a day rate now. But then one job will vary from one job to another. So if I'm photographing a big campaign shoot for a 5-star hotel, that's going to look different, because that might be a week job with all sorts of, there might be a huge team of stylists, of videographers, of creative directors, of brand management. Like, everyone's going to be there, and that's going to be an entirely different job to, say, when I'm just shooting some lifestyle content for a small private accommodation shoot in country Tasmania. So it's always a juggle and trying to figure out, okay, how do I quote for a job, and what is my time worth, and what value the client's getting, I guess. So starting out in the beginning, just talking to other photographers and saying, hey, like, what are you charging, and what is this job worth to you, was really helpful. And I'm really I'm really all about that now, and sort of that's one thing that I love to be able to share in my workshops is just this really candid conversation about money, because I feel like a lot of people don't want to talk about it. People don't feel comfortable talking about it, but it is super important, and particularly when you're running your own business and, like I said, you're managing your time and you're managing your worth. These conversations are really important, and also in the industry, in the creative industry that we're in, it's really important for, I guess, building sort of an understanding and a framework of respect for our industry also. And it must be so confusing for people who are hiring photographers to have no idea, like, how much are they going to charge, how much, I guess no one really knows what certain creative industries charge for their work. Like, we all know how much it costs to go down to the shop and buy milk or eggs or whatever it looks like, but we know how much it would cost maybe for a plumber to come and fix our taps. But how do we know how much a creative's going to charge? And then how much creatives charge independent of one another it also fluctuates so much. So I really love the idea of being able to have chats with other I guess photographers in my industry, and being able to have candid conversations like, how much do you charge, and being able to kind of create a bit of a mirror and ballpark basis of sort of what they charge is really helpful, because you don't want to be the person who's charging too much and not getting any work, or then on the flip side being the person who's charging too little and then you're getting all the work just because you're the cheap one. Like, you want to be respected because your work is worth what it is. So I guess it's a bit of a it's important, I feel anyway, to be able to have these conversations, to be able to create a bit of an industry standard and respect for the industry also. But yeah, it took me a while even just to consider, okay, what goes into a shoot? Like, it's not just me rocking up and being there for 7-8 hours in the day. It's also, okay, I take those files home. I've got to manage all of those files. I've got to cull all of those files, and then I edit those files. And then when I've edited them, I've got to upload them. And that takes a really long time. Like, it can take just as much, if not double the time of your actual shoot time to post-processing and managing all of those files and sending them off to the client. But then it's also the conversations you have prior and the conversations you have after, and then it's the file handling after, also sending them off to wherever you're sending them off to, and whatever needs adjusting or changing or anything after that. So there is a lot of time involved, and I think just also educating people who are involved, like what that looks like, and so that they realise it's not just an hourly rate that you're showing up for and being paid for that particular day. That hourly rate has got to support you through the rest of the time and the work that you're doing. So in sitting down with myself and recognising, I guess, first, like, what value am I giving to my clients, and then working through, okay, how much time does it take me to do this, and then what is my time worth? It's always really hard to figure that out, but like I said, having others in the industry who you trust and admire and maybe are at a similar skill level to you to be able to ask and converse with is always really handy, and really special when you find those people who are open and willing to share that sort of information as well.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of circles back nicely to how you wanted to talk about, the scarcity mindset and competition, and linking back in with your workshops and what you do. And we are looking to do one together, which will be very exciting. And we will share
We
each other. Make
are.
sure by the time this podcast is live, there will be no doubt a link in the profile, and we can share more about that via that link. But for now, why don't you talk a little bit about why you do workshops? Because, I mean, I'm sure in some ways, obviously people pay for them, but, I know, when you do these in-person workshops, there's a lot of work that goes into them, a lot of time goes into them. And, then, well, in my experience, you don't do them. It's not like you do it for, this is going to I'm doing this to make lots of money. It's more than that. There's so much more to it than that.
Oh, of
In terms
course,
of,
yeah.
and we've spoken of how much you have personally benefited from doing workshops, from creating those connections, from connecting with mentors, from learning from other people, from surrounding yourself with other people who are on a similar journey to you. So can you talk to that a little bit about the power of workshops, why you do them? And as a, like I said, I'm sure you're very busy and you probably don't need to do them, but you do choose to do them. So why? And what do you think the benefits of going to a workshop are?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm so excited to be doing a workshop with you too. That's golden. It's going to be great. I love this. I love this chat very much. And I feel like this has just given me a whole new sort of realm of fire in my belly of like why I'm so excited about what I do in this industry. Photographing is one thing, but I started to get to a point where I was like, oh, I'm taking another photo, it's work, and then I realized very quickly that something that just brings me so much joy is these conversations with creatives and being able to be able to share and to be able to, I guess, go back to this idea of community and this idea of sharing knowledge. And so for me, and I love teaching so much, but to create an opportunity where people can come along and bring their cameras, whether they're brand new and they bought their camera yesterday, or whether they're a fellow professional, or whether they're, someone just wanting to upskill so they can create content for their business, whatever it looks like, whatever stage. But just if you're interested in photography, to be able to come together in a room full of other photographers and know that you'll just be able to be in a space where we can just share everything about the industry, whether it's the basics from how to use your camera on manual settings, to how to tell stories, to how to work with light and composure images, to how do you edit, and then everything beyond that, which is all this industry stuff that we're talking about, right? Which is, the money side of things, which is the pitching, which is the business side of things, like everything. And then also the sharing of these images and what that can do. There's so much to talk about. And I love all of that content so much. And I just realized how, I guess, in our creative industries, there can be that competitive edge. There can be a lot of people who don't necessarily want to share their process or the way they do things, or maybe they'll share a little bit, but they're not kind of really sharing the nitty gritty. No one's talking about the numbers, and no one's really talking about the settings. No one's really talking about, I guess, like how they do things, A, B, C, D, whatever it looks like. And I was like, this is the stuff that people really want to learn, and this is a really lovely opportunity to be able to share all of that, so that people can then go ahead and feel confident in being able to create images and be able to go ahead and improve their business or make a career out of this. And at the end of the day, like, that scarcity mindset of thinking, oh, there's not enough work for everybody, or if I share all of my secrets, then I'm no longer going to look good, or I'm no longer going to be able to get work, or people whatever will go elsewhere. I think that sort of scarcity mindset it's obviously it's all just based on fear. But when you look around, I'm like, the more that we give, the more that we share, the more that we allow this community to grow, the better it is for all of us, actually. Like, we're just allowing this place where we can all just be better equipped, we can all be better educated, we can all, as I mentioned before, just create a stronger industry standard. There's more respect for the industry then. And then also there's so much work. There's so much creative opportunity out there for people. It's just, for me, such an exciting space to be able to offer that. And I think something that I get really excited about with these workshops is building this sense of community. And even if it's just for 2 days where people come and they connect, and we have this incredible time of, not only learning about photography, but being able to have a really inspiring, beautiful space around us, having amazing food. Like, I'm all about the hospitality. People get spoiled to no end. Being in the same room as like-minded people, as you mentioned earlier, there's something about that just creates such a strong connection. And often have people will then admit to me during those times that maybe they weren't going to come to the workshop that morning, that they were going to they were about to talk themselves out of it, or, a couple of days before they were just really anxious and scared because they thought, who am I to be going to this workshop? Am I going to be good enough? Am I going to fit in? And then really within the first few minutes, maybe, a little bit after that, people, they quickly realize that everyone in that room is in the same boat. They're all wondering, am I good enough, or will I fit in, or whatever it looks like. But it just quickly becomes this lovely, big, warm hug for everyone to be in a space where they're able to be vulnerable, and they're able to connect, and they're able to pretty much be like everyone else next to them, which is, wondering the same things. And then once that's kind of out of the way, then people can feel relaxed and really learn and really connect and really, again, just build this lovely community. And by the end of it, none of us want to leave. We're always just having, we just had the most amazing time, and don't want to say goodbye. We just want to keep learning and creating together. And I just think that for me is such fuel to this fire. It's just really special. I just love the knowledge sharing. I love the opportunity sharing. I love that quote. It's been circulating around a lot lately. Find friends who will say your name in a room full of opportunities. I love that one so much, because it's just this idea that, there's so much to go around, and let's be all encouraging of each other, and let's be proud of each other, and let's all, create space for each other to create and share these amazing opportunities that are out there. I love that so much. So that it really drives me to continue these workshops, and to not only educate, but then foster this idea of sharing and community. I love it so much.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see the master in action in terms of, first of all, I'm excited to learn how to actually use my DLSR. That's the first thing.
I'd love to help you with that, Natalie.
I'm excited to see, you've done so many of these, and see the master at work in terms of how you do it all. And just, have that connection. I think that it's so important. I think we all get caught in a groove of our daily life, and all the to-do lists, and all the things that we need to do, and the busyness. And I think actually my husband said this to me the other day, and he said, which it's kind of almost embarrassing to admit, but he said, I think you need to, I don't know, maybe I was having post-holiday blues or something. We just got back from Japan, and it just felt like everything was falling apart in the house. And, like when you have these moments of just, I don't know, it was just having a party for myself. And he said, I think you need a hobby. I think I don't have time for it. No, but it's I think you need to, just do something for play, go and do a ceramics class.
Good advice. Yes.
And I just thought it was, and for me, I love taking photos with my phone, because I get this anxiety about the technology of a camera. And it's funny because I have that with the podcast, and I managed to do the podcast, but I just have this mental block with the camera. But I think to put it into context of our conversation, I think it's important that we give ourselves these opportunities to play. And I think that's why workshops can be so important, is that circling back to even what we were talking about before, about following your curiosity, and not having necessarily, I'm doing this because I want this end goal. And that's literally what my husband said to me. Because I think that, I have so many things like that of okay, because I'm running 2 businesses, and all of those things. And so there's so many end goals, but to actually do something for the pure joy of it, to do something for the play of it, and just to follow that curiosity is so important. So that's what I'm really looking forward to with this. And
just the best, isn't it? And like you said, just to be given permission also in a place where others have permission, and you're all just kind of in it together, and you're all playing together. And if you mess up, it doesn't matter. And if you need help, there's somewhere there to help you. And it's also this really lovely place, I guess, to just encourage people to make mistakes and be creative during that play, and not to be worried about what people think necessarily of what you're creating, and allow a space to just throw it all out there and just have a go. I think that the comparison thing can often shut us down pretty quickly, even if we're kind of in our own worlds, and we're focusing by ourselves of creating the perfect image, and you just immediately start to think about all these things like, is it good enough? Or is it Eleanor Roosevelt who said that amazing quote, the comparison is the thief of joy? I love that one where, and just this idea that if you just let go of comparison, then you can have so much fun and playing, and just so fun. I love that part of it. Encouraging people, be like, you've got this, it looks really good, and if it's really good, if it's beautiful to you, then it's beautiful. That's fabulous. But yeah.
So just before we get to the final questions, obviously some people might be listening to this, in the moment, and they're like, when this episode goes live, and obviously we'll have a link to the workshop that we're going to do together. I'll do some styling components. Lean will be doing the photography, but I know that you do workshops regularly. Like, how regularly would you say that you do them, and do they tend to just be in Australia, or do you do them around the world? And what's the best way for people to kind of, I guess, be in the loop? Do you have a newsletter, or is it best just for people to follow you on Instagram to find out when your next workshop is? Can you just share a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yes. So the workshops, at the moment, my goal is to try and host 4 a year, and where in the world they happen is, it kind of unravels just maybe a month or 2 prior to them, me launching the tickets. So it's always a rolling stone, I guess, of how they come about and where they come about. So I've got one coming up in Tasmania on the 23rd and 24th of March. I'm not sure if the podcast will be out before then. And then that's at the Beaumont with Michelle Crawford. And we've also got a really fun day on the 25th, an extra excursion day where we're going to Satellite Island, to be able to, because it's always a 2-day intensive course, and it's so fun. It's intensive. We learn a lot, but it's always really fun. But as I said, by the end of it, we always want to stay on forever. So sometimes I add a 3rd day on for us to just be able to have that play day, I guess, of being able to explore somewhere really beautiful and photograph that together. So that's coming up at the end of March. Then we'll do our one together, I think, at the end of autumn, which again, we'll share dates and all the details soon. Last year, I was lucky enough to do a workshop. I held a workshop in Tuscany, which was amazing, with Emiko Davies at her beautiful Enoteca Marilu in San Miniato. So that was my first kind of step of me launching this workshop, the format that I have, and launching my own workshop overseas, and it worked really well. So I'd like to do another one overseas, sort of mid-year if I can. I am going to be traveling a lot with a special project this year, so I hope to be able to launch one internationally. And it's really fun also just to see who's out there and who's interested in coming along to these workshops that aren't necessarily in Australia. And then at the end of the year, I'll be coming back and hopefully hosting a workshop in Western Australia. It's been so nice. Every workshop that I've held so far, I've always had at least one student come across from WA. So it'd be nice to go over there and see if anyone's keen to learn with me in WA. But yeah, generally, at the moment, I'm loving doing them as frequent as I can, and I'm finding 4 a year just feels like a really lovely number. We'll see. Hopefully there'll be more and continuing on next year. But yeah, to know where the workshops are and to see, first up when they're launched, it's best to join my mailing list on my website, and I send out a newsletter there, and I share immediately when the tickets are going to be going on sale. So I always put it on Instagram as well. At Lean Tims is my Instagram handle. I feel like Instagram doesn't always show us when things are happening or what's going on, so it's always best, I think, to sign up to that mailing list. I promise I don't spam you. I'll just share when things are happening, it's probably the best place to join up. So that's at my website, leantims.com.
Yeah, we'll definitely put all the links to that in the show notes. And I have that all the time. I mean, I recently had a styling course that, I run, the styling masterclass, and always, even though you feel like you're kind of like bombarding people a little bit on Instagram, I always get people who say, oh, I've only just seen this post, and it's like 4 days later because of the algorithm. And I didn't know this was happening. And it's like, oh my God, this is why you have to share like multiple times and have to have an email list, because otherwise things just get lost. So we'll definitely put all the links there for that. All right, I'm going to
Perfect.
go on to the final questions that I ask everyone. I'm really interested to hear your answers on these. So the
Fun.
first question is, which 5 words best describe you?
Oh, so hard, Natalie. It's always so hard to narrow these down. Well, I think we've figured out the first one, which is curious. That's definitely me. Um, I would say intuitive, um, generous, which can have its up and downs, um, independent, and optimistic.
Great. What's the best lesson you've learned?
Oof.
One, one of
It's
them. I
going to
know it's
sound really, yeah, there's so many, like continually learning life lessons, which is great. But it's going to sound really grim, but probably the lesson on mortality. Um, it was just such a powerful activity for me to reverse engineer my life and just to realize that we don't live forever and the way our primal instincts convince us that we will. And it was just such a life and perspective giver to me and motivated me to be really bold and to give things a go and not sit back and wait, you know, both in business and my personal life. And another big lesson I've learned is to trust, which is always being challenged, but yeah, to trust my intuition and to be guided by that, and to trust that even in the really hard moments, they're golden opportunities for growth, and, you know, everything always works out and has a silver lining.
Yeah, great. What's been your proudest achievement?
I think it's actually choosing a life that feels really honest and fulfilling to me. I mean, I feel like it's a choice I'm continuing to make daily, and I'm going to have to keep choosing for the rest of my life, continuing to learn and to, you know, challenge for growth and embracing change. But it's had the most incredible knock-on effect and brought so much goodness into my life.
What's been your best decision?
Becoming a photographer, for sure, and backing myself as a creative freelancer. It's been a really fun time.
Who inspires you?
Oh, inspiration's got to be one of the best feelings ever, I reckon. I'd love to be able to bottle it up and tap into it whenever we need a hit. um, who inspires me? Mother Nature, for sure. The seasons and vegetation around the world. I nerd out about this, and it really inspires me. People who put in effort, people who are brave and take risks, people who ask questions and really listen. People who are open to learning and challenging the status quo no matter what age. Actually, speaking of age, I find there's also something really inspiring in intergenerational friendships. I find I'm really drawn specifically to women in their 60s and 70s, often single women who like unleashed all their creative energy and like they've got a second wind at life and are just totally killing it. They're always really inspiring because I find them so liberated and they've got no inhibitions, and I feel like it's an age bracket that can go under the radar a lot, but I've got a lot of beautiful friends in this age bracket, and these women just make me excited to be older, and I think we need more of that type of excitement in our culture.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
What are you passionate about?
Clearly a lot. Gardening. I love gardening. I love learning and sharing and encouraging community. Yeah, they'd be my passions at the top of my head.
What dream do you still want to fulfill?
Or I'd still love to own a summer house in Sweden. I try to go back to Sweden every year. I've still got my beautiful family there that I lived with during my exchange year, and I just find it the most inspiring country. I'd love to improve on my Swedish, and yeah, the dream is to live half of my year in Sweden in a little cabin somewhere isolated that gets lots of snow in the winter, and maybe even by a lake in the summer. That'd be beautiful.
Amazing. And what are you reading? Do you have any books on your bedside table, coffee table?
Yes,
What reading?
yes. I'm trying to read more. I'm kind of one of those people that start reading before bed and then I just fall asleep, and I don't really give myself the time to sit still and read. I never really sit still. But I just finished. I had this really lovely, amazing time over the summer period where I sat down and started reading, and I just finished my beautiful, talented friend, Kate Young's brand new novel called Experienced. And it's a big gay rom-com, and it's one of the best books I've ever read, honestly. It's not officially out until May, but I can just tell the world's going to go wild for it. So put that one on your to-read list, Experienced by Kate Young. And I always love tapping into any of Robin Sharma's books. That man has changed my world. He's an incredible leadership coach. But the Everyday Hero Manifesto is one of my favourites that I'll just pick up, and I think that's his most recent book. It's just perfect to pick up and have a leaf through, and just always gives me such direction and clarity. It's a brilliant book.
Is he the one that did the 5 a.m. club?
Yes, Natalie, that's him. Yeah.
Do you do 5 a.m.?
6 a.m. But it's definitely changed my world in terms of my routine. And he has this amazing concept where you wake up in the morning and the first hour of your day should be spent learning, reflecting, and moving and exercising. And it's really everything that Robin shares is just so wise and so insightful, and really has entirely changed my outlook on life. Even just like really poignant things like no longer being, I guess, a victim of the world, and looking at the world from a place of opportunity, and being more of a leader. It's so inspiring. I love his stuff. Great podcast. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check it out. And what are you listening to? So his podcast.
His podcast. Yeah.
Any others?
So many. Because I spend a lot of time in the car driving, so I'm often, or editing, so I'm often listening to lots of podcasts. Well, yours, obviously, Natalie, it was on high rotation. But yes, what else? The Diary of a CEO, I love. Muddy Boots is a really great gardening podcast for anyone out there who also is a gardening fan. Any interviews really with creatives or entrepreneurs, absolutely love. Like Make Good is a good one. The interviews on Your Dream Life with Christina Carlson, I find those really inspiring. The Mentor with Mark Boris. That's that in terms of podcasts. I love that. And also I've just always got music on in the background as well. I'm such a fan of music. So in the mornings, I'm a big classical music fan. I think that's probably residual of my ballet days, but I always have ABC Classic on in the mornings, and then usually I'll switch over to ABC Jazz in the afternoons, which is a fun little ritual of mine when I'm home. Love listening to Taylor Swift always and Bossa Nova. I don't even care if that's not cool. I just love it so much. I'm a big jazz fan. But that's usually in my ears.
And finally, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Selena, the ballerina. Good question. Really hard to, because I guess without her, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. So I think I'd actually just thank her for putting in the hard yards to, slowly but surely lead me to this place where I'm better at trusting my intuition and continuing to believe in abundance. Thanks, little Lean.
And is that where the name Lean comes from? Celine, yeah?
Yes, Selena, yes. Yeah, my parents never really called me Selena growing up. It was always Lean. I think my teachers, or when I was in trouble, I'd get Selena, but I just don't identify with that name or her anymore. So, it's just I actually changed it formally. So it's officially Lean and has been for many years now. But, it feels good not to be Selena. It's much to my mum's disgust. Way too feminine for me.
Well, it's been such a treat to chat to you. Really love learning more about you, your story, your process, your journey, all of the things. So
I've just loved it, Natalie. Such a treat to talk to you too. Really, really special.
Yeah, and we will put all the links to, your website and all the workshops, all of those things in the in either where you listen to the podcast or in the show notes as well. So thanks again, and can't wait to do this workshop with you too. So it's going to be so much fun.
Amazing. I'm so excited, and thank you everyone for listening. Really special. Such a treat. Thank you.
All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.